Jay Sano without intro music. Jay Sano with intro music. Intro music remix. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. Jay Sano 19. All right, hello everybody, and welcome back. It is Jeff again, coming to you from the Mindcrack server. And as I said yesterday, plan today was to go and try to get back into this cave that I know runs underneath the Guardian Temple, and I believe this is the connection to it. So again, today is a day that I just got off of the night shift, kind of tired, kind of loopy. So who knows what this what this conversation, what this episode, what this everything. Who knows? I cannot stop these boats. I don't get it. You can't hold backwards. Backwards apparently doesn't stop a boat. You can't just coast it. It doesn't stop a boat. I don't know what to do. So I'm gonna go down here. This is a long ways down. I'm gonna have to use some torch action to get in there. Anyways, last night was actually a really good night at the hospital. I ended up having a patient who, nice young kid. They was coming up from the OR. They didn't know how sick he was going to be, so they made him what's called a one-to-one. So he was the only patient that I had until they could figure out his stability. Turns out he didn't need to be a one-to-one at all. He was really, really stable. And by the time that he made it up there, we realized that the unit was full. So I got to chill all night, kind of just oh my god, I got the hiccups. I think I get the hiccups every time I start recording. I will be fine beforehand, and all of a sudden right when we start recording, you guys must think I just have chronic hiccups, and I swear to you, I do not. I seem to get them when we record, and that's about it. But anyways, he came up, nice young kid, and he was fine. But unit was full, so I didn't have to do anything. So anybody who's also a nurse out there, and I know there's multiple of you who watch my channel, I didn't need to use that, that, you know the joys of when you can get actually one of those relatively easy nights. You take advantage, you relax, you enjoy, because I don't come that often. And then eventually I will be bombarded with craziness. I'm actually got one more day in the emergency department, and then I go back to the ICU. I don't know if I actually told you guys. So I told you, I know at some point that I didn't bring my bucket with me. I can make a bucket. There's gold and stuff on this. We're gonna take the time and make. I can't even make a bucket. Don't even have wood. But hold on, we were just in a. I did not come prepared for this mission at all, and I really don't feel like going all the way back up to the surface. Hi, zombie. I hear you. This isn't even the right direction to it. Oh, I might end up having to go back up to the surface because I just might have to go back up to the surface. I don't know. So, I don't know. I told you guys at one point that I was applying for what's called the float pool position. I don't know if I told you the story or not. So, stop me if I did. Okay, nobody stopped me. So, good. I apparently did not. So, anyways, I applied for the float pool position, and the reason that I did that was because the float pool position pays a lot of money. I'll be straight with you guys. Some people were asking the questions, and I will be completely honest. They said, how much do nurses on average get paid? So there was some discussion in the comments about it. And Talia, great Talia, always been a loyal fan of mine. Many of the Mindcrackers, many of the friends of the Mindcrackers, people that I know and follow. She's also a very loyal follower of us all. Also a nurse. Amazing person. So she was gracious enough to start answering some people with basic salaries of nurses in certain areas. And she's absolutely right that she said what she gets paid, but how I live in a different region, the region I live in is more expensive, so I probably get paid more. Amazingly, that is incorrect. So, in Washington, D.C., as a starting nurse at my hospital, which my hospital claims to be the highest paid tier of nursing, I get, we started out at $27.30 an hour. I am now 5 years later at $30.60 per hour. It is not a drastic increase, and it is in no way correlates to the cost of living in DC as opposed to living in other areas. So, for instance, in Michigan, nurses might start a little bit lower. I think the average starting in Michigan is somewhere around $25 or $26 an hour for nurses. However, the nurses in Michigan also... What was I about to smell? What was I about to smell? Oh, the iron. The nurses in Michigan also get paid, or excuse me, the cost of living in Michigan is also over 30% less than it is in Washington, D.C. So Washington, D.C. is a bad area to compare a lot of this stuff to because the pay that you get does not correspond to the cost of living at all. I was talking to a nurse down in San Antonio when I was in San Antonio for PAX. And she was explaining to me how their average starting salary for nurses is like $22 an hour, which seems extremely low. However, the cost of living in San Antonio is so much less than it is in a place like DC or in many of the other places that's, oh my God, get out of this web. That's comparable in an okay salary. I wouldn't say it's great still, but it's okay. It's strange though how, you know, Michigan pays so well for nursing and is such a low cost of living in comparison. It's kind of amazing, and one of the reasons I really want to get back to Michigan. But so I'll be honest with you, that's what I make out here in DC. It's not much compared to the cost of living. Like my salary last year, and some people might look at this and be like, "Oh my God, you make that much money? Like that's crazy. That's incredible." I think my W-2 for nursing itself grossed at $56,000 last year. So some of you guys might be like, wow, $56,000 a year. But if you know anything about cost of living in this area, I'm close to the poverty line with that. Not really close to the poverty line, but it's not a high amount of money, which one of the reasons that I'm really hoping to improve upon my YouTube career. Because if you guys don't know, I would love to make YouTube and Twitch and live streaming and such my career. That would be my ultimate goal with all this stuff. I just don't see myself being able to get there anytime in the near future yet, which is why I don't focus on it. I put a lot of, I hope you guys realize that I do put a lot of time and effort into what I do for you guys. And honestly, it's getting extremely hard to justify the time and effort that I put into this lately. So you might see some changes actually coming up soon. This is not what I wanted to get into talking about today, but just so you guys are prepared. I'm a very open and honest person. Just so you guys are prepared, you might see some changes with my channel, and there they are. Okay, and my channel and some things that I'm doing in the near future, because I do put a significant amount of time and energy into this stuff that I do for the YouTubes, for you guys, and not just for you guys, it's for myself as well, because I enjoy doing it. But just because you enjoy doing something, you do have to be able to justify it with, you know, time, money equation type of deal, as well as, you know, time with the family, things like that. Yeah, and I'm not married, but, you know, my family, you know, Julia, you know, she's my family. We've been together for like, you know, over 3 years now. She's my family. So just because she's not my, you know, wife at this stage of the game doesn't mean, you know, I don't consider her my family and my friends and things like that. And, you know, anything extracurricular that I want to do, yes, it gets very difficult to do. So, you know, ultimate goal for me is to have my, you know, view count grow, my subscription count grow, all that stuff, to be able to justify spending more time on this content. So anything anybody can do to help me, I would greatly appreciate that. However, that has nothing to do with what I was trying to talk about today. I was looking at moving over to the float pool position. Now, usually in a career, when you learn more and are a more, what do you call it? Desirable, not really desirable, a more educated employee, more skilled employee with more credentials and things like that, it's usually a very good thing, because companies will look at you and realize that you can do a lot of things for them. So they would want to, you know, give you higher rates of pay, and have people like that stick around. Nursing is a different profession. It doesn't do like merit-based wage increases and things like that, at least at my hospital. Although last time I talked about this particular item of merit-based wage increases and things like that, some people said that they were nurses and they did do merit-based wage increases, and I'm so like grateful for places that do allow that, because I would love that, and unfortunately it is not what happens at my facility. But that being the case, I look into other ways to try to get my, my worth up there. And one of those things is the ability to be in the float pool. Now, you have to work for so many years to be eligible to be in the float pool. I have the years of experience covered. The float pool pays... Ooh, that was close. The float pool pays base average, or the base for the position, specific float pool position that I was applying for, because there's tier 1 and tier 2 float pools. And what float pool means is you're not assigned to a specific unit, but you can float to units that you're like trained in to go help out and things like that. And the base pay for it is $50 an hour, and it allows for overtime. You don't get benefits, granted, so you have to get your own benefits, which you can do on a number of ways. I could either get them from the girlfriend. If we get married, I can get her benefits. I can purchase my own, and for the differential between $30 an hour and $50 an hour, I could easily afford to purchase my own benefits. So I was looking at the float pool positions. So I went and spoke to the person that was running the float pool, and I said, what I get to do right now is I have a special thing going on that nobody else in the facility gets to do. I am a straight up, normal employee, but I am allowed to split my time between the emergency department and the ICU. And I said, what I'm looking for in this position is to be able to schedule myself for emergency department only days and then ICU days. I said, and I know I won't get to choose my unit that I would work on, because it's the float pool, but if I'm in the ICU, I could go to any of the ICUs. I understand that, but I said I want to be able to make sure I can go to the emergency department when I'm needed. And her response was, at first when I talked to her, she's like, I don't know, we'll have to look into this because nobody else who's in the float pool can do both. And I was like, oh, so if I'm going to be the only one, let's try to make the rules. Maybe you'll get more people like me. I'd be a more useful type of employee because you'll have people who can go to more places when they need to. And as long as you give them the flexibility to do some things that they want to do sometimes. So then when I went for my official interview and talked to her about it a little bit more, she said straight up, she says, if that's what you're looking to do, that's not what this position can offer. Because float pool, what it is that you work where you're needed that day. You just sign up and you can work, and that is all there is to it. If you sign up for ER, but we need you in the ICU, you'd go to the ICU. And I said, can't we talk about this? And, you said I'm the only person that's, trained in both. Let's talk about this and see if we can come up to something. And she just straight up said, nope, it is a non-unit based float pool, because I guess they used to be unit based float pools, meaning that you could specifically just, my unit that I currently work on is called 4G. You could sign up and just be in the float pool for 4G, which really isn't a float pool. It would essentially mean I was on my unit at all times, and I just would get paid more. So I'd be under the float pool. Excuse me. And the main issue that I have with this is there's people who are in the float pool of the emergency department float pool, which essentially means they're just like what I was just describing. They're only trained in the emergency department. So they're in the float pool, a non-unit based float pool, but you can only get floated to some place that you are. What the hell is that? Is that a skeleton? Oh, it is. Oh my God, he looks just so funny the way he was in there and not shooting at me through the spider webs. Maybe they can't see it through the spider webs. That's weird. So it's non-unit based, but since you're only trained in the emergency department, the only place you can go is the emergency department. So we had a lot of people when the float pool positions opened up in the emergency department, they switched over to the float pool because all of a sudden they just got, close to double jump in their salary. I guess a 2/3 jump in their salary for having absolutely nothing that's different except for the requirement that they didn't, obviously they didn't get benefits, but they didn't have to work as many hours if they didn't want, but they still can work overtime if they felt like it, because they do have some of the higher paid positions, but they don't allow you to work overtime, and you're on different, you can only work 3 days in a 2-week period or something like that, and it's to prevent people from taking those positions just to completely take advantage of the money. But the float pool, for some reason, is not like that. So I was trying to convince her, like, look, if I'm trained more than anybody else, I said, all I'm asking for is what I can do right now, and that's you give me half the time that you can tell me I'm in the emergency department, and the other half the time I'll be in the float pool to wherever you want. Between either the ICUs, if I'm signed up for the ICU, or if you want to float me to the emergency department, you can float me there too. I just kept saying, no, if you sign up for something, I'll just put you where we need you at. That's all there is to it. You're trained in all the areas, so you can go to all the areas, which, like I said, I find a little bit unfair because there's the emergency department only people in the float pool, but I understand it at the same time. It is float pool. One of the reasons you get paid more in the float pool is because you can transfer to go to all these, different places, in theory, unless you're one of these emergency department only float pool people. So I get it. I can't get that upset with it, is what it is. It's just that the people who are emergency department only kind of are getting away with something, and I don't hold that against them at all. Get away with what you can, man. If you can do it and it's not shady and illegal, and that they let you do it. I mean, that's their own faults. It's not yours. You take advantage of those things when you can in life. That's another public service announcement lesson like mine the other day. If you can take advantage of something, take advantage of something. Things don't come around all the time that you can, so take advantage of it when you can. But I said, okay, this will, give me a decent amount of stuff to think about for this position. One more question I have for you about this position is I need to have on paper ICU experience because my eventual goal is to be trauma nurse and flight nurse, and you need X number of years of intensive care unit experience to get into both of these. I said the only position that exists on paper, just like you said, is it's float pool. Whether you're a med-surg float pool, an ICU float pool, an emergency department float pool, you're all under the position title of float pool. You just happen to know where people are qualified and able to go and can float them there, but it's not anything to do with like their job descriptions. I said, so on paper, if an outside company, if I were to apply to a place that required me to have 2 years of ICU experience, what would they call in and say? Would they call in the HR department? Would they tell them he has, 17 months of ICU experience and 2 years of float pool experience? Or would they tell them, 17 months of ICU experience and then, 2 years, whatever it is, of ICU float pool, or just straight up add the ICU experience to it? Like, what would they count it as? Because that's very important to me, because on paper, I need it to show that I have all the experience that I'm looking for. And she said, I honestly don't know the answer to that question. Talk to HR. So I talked to HR, and I wrote him an email and explained the entire situation to him and said, like, this is the deal. This is what I want to make sure. If I were to take this ICU float pool position and somebody were to call you and ask about my experience to check on my resume and things like that, what would you tell them? Would you tell them I'm in the ICU? Would you tell them I'm in float pool, or what? Like, what would it be marked as on paper? And she straight up, the HR person, I was kind of baffled by this, straight up said, if that's what you're looking to do, I highly suggest you keep track of the days you work in the ICU. And let me tell people out there, as a lesson to yourself, I can't scroll my wheel. There we go. As a lesson for the future, I have been screwed over by the quote-unquote handshake agreements before. That somebody told me something was going to be fine, said, don't worry about it. Yes, of course, that's what we would do. Like, I give you my word type of deal. And obviously when it came down to it, it didn't turn out that way, because on paper, nobody could prove anything. So be very leery of stuff like this. And I know this is sounding bad, but talking at my hospital sometimes, you need to be even more leery, because some shady stuff happens. I've seen some shady stuff. I've been at the butt end of some shady stuff before. So you really got to watch yourself. And once she said that, and now I'm basically in charge of my own tracking of where I worked, and that's ultimately everything's going to come down to the fact that I'm going to tell you what my experience was and hope that you, as a future employer, say, oh, you called. You can't verify that I have all the requisite experience. I could be like, oh, no, trust me, I do. Trust me, I do. Look, I wrote down all the days I worked in the ICU. That doesn't go very far when people need things on paper. I am only 3 months away from this point of meeting the minimum requirements that I need in order to go to at least to the trauma section of my particular facility. I actually meet all the requirements to go to trauma at many other facilities. I already meet the requirements to go to flight nursing at many other places, but I don't meet the requirements for flight nursing yet at my place. It requires another year of ICU experience, but the trauma bays can count as all that stuff. Either way, I'm 3 months away from pretty much finishing off the ICU experience that I went into this whole gig to get. And I'm not going to do anything to jeopardize officially having that experience when I'm this close to it. So I unfortunately had to turn down a very good paying job because of the fact that I need to make sure that on paper, on paper, I meet all the experience that I need to meet up with. So I know I had talked to you guys about the float pool and stuff before. I just don't know if I ever finished off the story to tell you guys exactly how everything happened. So now you know. But that also means that it's really sad that my W-2 this year, for those watching, W-2s are your end of year statement that tells you exactly how much money you made, how much you paid in taxes. And it's what you base your taxes off of when you, whether you get a refund, whether you owe money, how much you paid already, all that fun stuff. It's what bases all that. My W-2 this year was the absolute lowest amount of money I've seen on my W-2 for a yearly income. Hi, zombie. And since I've been actually, minus the year and a half that I was in nursing school for, because I didn't have a job at that point. But the years prior to that, I was working as an IT person at Ford Motor Company, and then since I've been working as a nurse for a long time, I was night shift only, and I was night shift only because we used to get a beast of a differential, which they took away in our last contract negotiation 3 years ago, and I lost a lot of that, and then I've been working, then I took a year and a half that I was doing the nursing informatics, where I did get paid more for the nursing informatics, but I hated my life when I was doing that stuff, so I went back to the bedside because of what I enjoy. But it's really strange I just hit my 5-year anniversary as a nurse, like 2 days ago, actually. So yay, congratulations to me, 5 years as a nurse. Is this really out in the wide open? Holy crap, it is. I'm not going to be able to actually get out of here, am I? Oh, I'm not in it. I'm not in it. I'm going to die. Nope, do that. Okay, let's do that. Okay, that should be okay. That's great. I didn't realize that this thing was actually halfway buried in the open. But it's really sad to see the lowest amount of money that I've gotten paid, because even working for 5 years, because of contract and differential changes and things like that, I make less money now than I did before. Yes, on paper, I do make about $2.50 more an hour than I did 5 years ago. But with all the differential changes, and as a nurse who works, days, nights, weekends, all that stuff, since they dropped the differential so much, that stuff really added up, especially when I was full-time nights, which I did because of the fact that I needed money to, pay back a lot of the stuff. I'd not been working for a year and a half. I had some debt I needed to get taken care of. So it's really sad, and actually really, it's humiliating almost in a way to look back and be like, wow, I'm on my second career, 5 years into it, making less money than I was the first year I was in this second career, living in an area where the cost of living is so ridiculously high. Part of that's, my own fault, quote unquote, but I had to work at my facility for 3 years because I did get a scholarship from them to go to nursing school. So I justified that, but I'm past that contract. I've given that time back, but now I'm dating somebody who works for the government, so it's not like you can get government jobs out of DC, so I'm kind of stuck in this area doing that, but yeah, I don't know. Kind of weird. I gave you guys a lot of inside information about my personal finances, and for those wondering, excuse me, I do not make enough money on YouTube to support myself by any stretch of the imagination. I make enough money on YouTube as it is now to basically keep up my computer equipment. And I don't mean buy new computer equipment all the time. I mean just like keep up with it. Like basically pay the electricity. I make very, very little doing this stuff. I enjoy doing this stuff, but I make very, very little doing it. And I know that a lot of people who don't do videos and stuff themselves don't understand how much money that people make from this stuff. And it's you know, you have to get a significant amount of views before you start making enough that makes it justifiable to keep as something yourself. So this really doesn't add to the income all that much, but a lot of personal details right there, guys. That's what happens to me on my morning runs after night shift, because I just start rambling and I'm an open book. Hope you guys enjoyed. Press that like button. I'll see you guys next time.